In today's video, we have more information on Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is almost certainly bound for the Switch 2. That's speculation, but we'll talk about that. EA's founder has been defending Nintendo and their pricing. PlatinumGames is being dumb and working on more live service stuff. And most importantly, the price of the Xbox consoles is rising. Not inherently a Nintendo news story, but it's definitely relevant to the greater Switch 2 conversation. So that is what we are talking about today. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch 2 news and coverage, I would appreciate you subscribing. Let's get into it. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the channel. Much to get into today. Very interesting morning. When I woke up and I saw that Xbox news, I was like, oh no, it's really starting here. But we will get to that in just a little bit. I actually want to start off by thanking you all. We hit 30,000 subscribers last night, which is a huge milestone. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the support. But let's talk about the news. So, first things first, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. This is not technically new information. However, there's been a lot of speculation within the community of when is this game actually going to release. And for a while now, because they said winter in the reveal trailer, just a vague winter release time frame, I've seen a lot of posts of people being like, oh, well, maybe Age of Imprisonment is going to be a January or February 2026 release. Well, we have Koei Tecmo's financial results for the fiscal year, or for the quarter at the very least here, and in these slides, they specifically say that Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is coming in winter 2025. So not just winter, specifically winter 2025. So we know it's coming this year. It's just a matter of what month at this point. Winter technically doesn't start until late December. I think it'll certainly come out before then. Maybe we're looking at a December release. Maybe it will be November, sandwich next to Pokemon. Maybe Pokemon's not releasing in November at all. It could be earlier than that. But just wanted to update you all on that. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment once again reconfirmed for 2025, not early 2026. Koei Tecmo had a lot to say about Switch 2 and how they plan on supporting it. Very cool. Right now we know about 3 games from them. Of course, Hyrule Warriors, but also on launch day we have that new Nobunaga's Ambition Complete Edition, as well as Wild Hearts S releasing in July. So Koei Tecmo quickly becoming one of my favorite publishers. I think we'll see a lot more from them in the coming months, maybe in the next Nintendo Direct, but especially early next year. You think of games like Dynasty Warriors Origins, but also Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and Ninja Gaiden 4. I think there's a lot of stuff from Koei Tecmo that makes a lot of sense to come over to the Switch 2. But speaking more on Hyrule Warriors, we actually have confirmation that next week we will be getting a Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment creator's voice. Every week Nintendo's been doing these creator's voice kind of developer diaries, and we know that next week's is going to be Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. So hopefully we actually get some new footage of the game. We don't really have that much gameplay, some more information on it, what they're doing differently this time around, and most importantly, maybe we will actually get a release date. It feels weird to get a date for this not in a Nintendo Direct, but also it's kind of weird that we're getting a creator's voice to begin with. But for those curious to learn more about this new Warriors title, that creator's voice will be going live on May 6th, I believe at 6 a.m. Pacific or 7 a.m. Pacific in the morning, very early hours. And then they've also already confirmed that the creator's voice on May 13th, a week later, will be for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. So definitely stay tuned for those. I'll probably end up doing some sort of reaction or video on Hyrule Warriors next week when that one drops, so stay tuned for that. Next up, I thought the timing of this one was very peculiar. So Necro Felipe from Universal Nintendo posted this, but you can check it for yourself on the Japanese Nintendo Switch eShop. He said here, Assassin's Creed Odyssey Cloud Edition sales have halted on the Japanese Nintendo eShop. Ubisoft did not provide a reason for removing the game that ran via the cloud on the Nintendo Switch. So over the course of the Switch generation, we saw a lot of publishers trying to get their bigger games on Switch through cloud editions. We saw Capcom do it with the Resident Evil remakes, as well as Resident Evil 7 and 8. Remedy did it with Control, as well as Square Enix with the Kingdom Hearts games. Well, Ubisoft was one that tried it very early on with Assassin's Creed Odyssey back, I want to say in 2018, and it just got removed. Now, Ubisoft is a publisher that really doesn't have much going on right now with Switch 2. We know we're getting Star Wars Outlaws, but no Assassin's Creed games are actually confirmed. Assassin's Creed Shadows, I want to say, was rated for Switch 2, but I expect an influx of Assassin's Creed and Far Cry ports over the coming months and years, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey is one of the best-selling AC games. I would not be surprised if we see this announced and released very soon in the near future for Switch 2, because otherwise, why even remove the cloud version, right? Like, it's the fact that removing the cloud version literally a month before the Switch 2 releases. Like, there's going to be a native version of this game. I'd be kind of surprised if there isn't. And speaking of third-party games, Borderlands 4, that is confirmed for the Nintendo Switch 2. However, the other day, they changed the release date of the other versions, PS5, Series X, PC. It was releasing on September 23rd. Now it is releasing on September 12th. And yesterday morning, Sony had a state of play just for Borderlands 4, showing off new gameplay, new mechanics, all that stuff. If you're interested in Borderlands, it looks fine. You know, I'm not a huge Borderlands fan. I like Borderlands 2, but this one looks okay. I don't love the art style. It feels like they really toned back the cell shading, which I'm not a huge fan of. At the end of the trailer, even on the official Borderlands accounts, they don't mention Switch 2 releasing on September 12th. Now, when Randy Pitchford announced Borderlands 4 for Switch 2 in the Switch 2 April 2nd showcase, he didn't say a release date then, so it was already kind of peculiar, like, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to launch at the same time as the other platforms. Well, even now, still a month later, they still are not willing to commit to that release date. So it looks like Borderlands 4 might end up releasing a little bit later on Switch 2 than the other platforms, which I really hope isn't the case, because this is one of our first big multi-plat games that was announced for Switch 2. It would take the wind out of the sails a little bit if it's like, oh, well, Borderlands 4 is playable and everything else on September 12th. And then it's coming to Switch 2 in October. It's like, come on, you couldn't get it ready 4 weeks earlier, like, really here? So we'll see what happens with that. I wonder if it might just be a thing of Nintendo wants to have the announcement in a Nintendo Direct. So I think it's definitely possible it releases on September 12th, and maybe they're just waiting to say so in like a June Direct or something like that. Or maybe even in a creator's voice. I could see them doing a creator's voice for this game. So we'll see with Borderlands 4. I really hope it releases on the same day as the other platforms. But let me know what you thought of the state of play. If you're interested in Borderlands, I might check it out. I didn't play Borderlands 3, so it's been a while for me. I might pick this one up. I thought this was pretty funny just because of who it's actually coming from, but Trip Hawkins, the original founder of EA Electronic Arts, he had some comments to say about the Switch 2 and Nintendo. He said, as a function of play hours and their value, Nintendo's prices are perfectly reasonable. I fully expect Switch 2 to exceed 100 million units sold in its lifetime, just like its predecessor. This will be the 5th Nintendo platform to exceed 100 million, of course, counting DS, Switch, Game Boy, Wii, and Switch 2, and every one of these has been family-oriented. Sony's PS1, PS2, and PS4 are the only others in history to sell this well. So I wanted to include it just because this is the first, like, real industry person, even though he's not with EA anymore. This is the first real industry person I've seen just, like, flat out defend Nintendo's pricing on their games, on the console itself, and to gas it up and say, yeah, no, it's gonna sell over 100 million. Regardless of how you feel about Mario Kart World being $80, it is particularly funny that this person that founded EA, which is seen as like one of the greediest gaming companies, it's funny that he's the one to defend it. Even though I know he left EA way before the modern EA as we know them, the greedy EA as we know them, really came to be. I just thought it was a little funny, and I mean, as someone who's been more positive on the entire situation in general, it is kind of nice to see someone else sharing the sentiment. I think the Switch 2, I don't know about 100 million because it is so expensive. You are kind of simply going to price out some people inherently at a price point like that. But I mean, if it has a long life cycle and it has a lot of great software, then I think 100 million is totally possible if it does last as long as the Switch 1 did. I thought this was pretty cool. So as part of the Switch events in Japan, they're handing out a physical Nintendo magazine, and you can also check it out on the website. I'll have it linked down below. But on one of the pages, they talk about mouse controls and mouse supports for Switch 2 games, and we learned a little bit here that we didn't know. I think for most of these, we knew they would have mouse controls, but there are one or two I don't think that were confirmed. So obviously, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Mario Party, we knew about those. Welcome Tour will be using it. But they have a whole list of third-party games here, so to go through it really quick, all of these games will be supporting mouse controls on Switch 2 in one way or another. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, we've seen the trailer for that. That is confirmed to have mouse controls. Kanetsugami Path of the Goddess, I don't think that one was confirmed, but it makes sense. That is an RTS kind of game. Of course, action elements there as well. Hogwarts Legacy, we already knew about that one. Cyberpunk 2077, we talked a lot about that in yesterday's video. Nobunaga's Ambition, of course, this is a 4X strategy game. That makes a lot of sense there. Deltarune, that makes perfect sense to have mouse controls. Tamagotchi Plaza, I don't think we knew about that one, but once again, that kind of makes sense. It's like kind of a sim Animal Crossing style game where there's a bunch of mini games. There's one where like you're brushing a character's teeth or something, so I guess you can do that with the mouse. Civilization 7, once again similar to Nobunaga, that just makes a lot of sense there. And then this one, it really caught my eye here, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD. I guess you'll be able to select menu commands. This was a 3DS game, so it makes sense to have a mouse control option. I guess I just wasn't really expecting it for this one in particular. Every other game on here, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Bravely Default, I was like, oh, even Bravely Default has mouse controls. So ever since the mouse controls were leaked or, rumored, I was like, oh yeah, I think a lot of games are going to use mouse controls, and that seems to be the case. I mean, this is a big bulk of the launch day lineup using it, which is really exciting. I think mouse controls are really going to change the way people play games on console. Even though you can usually connect a USB keyboard and mouse, this just makes it so seamless. I'm really excited to see how many games use this on launch day, of course. Well, it looks like we know the launch day lineup, but also just beyond. Like, how long will this control method be adopted and used by Nintendo and third parties? It's going to be very interesting to see in the long term. Two pieces of news from PlatinumGames that I thought were relevant to Nintendo. So first up, Tech for Gamers spotted a job listing for PlatinumGames. They are hiring for a new online action game as part of a live service focus. So even though Babylon's Fall was a disaster, I guess they've really learned nothing. So I suppose we should expect another Babylon's Fall style live service Platinum game in the next couple of years if it doesn't get canceled. I find this very disheartening. We know they're working on Ninja Gaiden 4 with Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja. Platinum, you make good single-player action games. Stop trying to chase this live service trend. It's clearly not going to work for you. But more importantly to the Nintendo audience, for those of us that have been hoping for an Astral Chain 2, I do have bad news for you. So this has been rumored off and on for the past couple of months. It seems like late in 2024, a bunch of PlatinumGames key staff kind of had a mass exodus from PlatinumGames, and a lot of it was just rumor and hearsay, but we now have confirmation that the director of Astral Chain, Takahisa Tora, he has left PlatinumGames and started his own studio called Eel Game Studio. He was also a designer on Nier Automata, so he's one of the founding members of this new Eel Game Studio. We will see what happens here. Maybe Nintendo would work with them. Nintendo does own Astral Chain, so they could go through his new studio if they wanted to make an Astral Chain 2. I really hope we at least get like a Switch 2 edition of the first game so it can run better and run at 4K or whatever. Ideally we get Astral Chain 2, though. I think Astral Chain is one of the most underrated Switch 1 games. Underappreciated, I guess, would be a better word for, because it had good reviews. It just feels like no one really played it, and I think this is one of Platinum's best games. So Takahisa Tora, good luck to you on your new journey with your new Eel Game Studio. And PlatinumGames, I mean, they're doing this live service game. Ninja Gaiden 4, I think, will do well for them on PS5 and Xbox, and hopefully Switch 2. I wonder if Nintendo and Platinum's relationship is gone. Kami is gone, of course, with Clovers, and they're working with Capcom on Okami 2 now. Could Nintendo work with Clovers at some point? Could they work with Eel Game Studio? We will have to wait and see, but Astral Chain 2 is probably a lost cause, as much as that saddens me to say. But I mean, they could go through him. I just don't know if they really would care enough to, but we'll see. Second to last thing I wanted to touch on in this video, I might do a full video just looking at all of this over on my second channel at It's Amiibo, or maybe even post it here. But I mentioned the Switch 1 eShop had been changed in firmware 20.0.0 on the Switch 1. It's red now. There's some new filter options. Of course, the Switch UI in of itself is different a little bit here, and I say different very loosely. I mean, they changed the color and added some options on the homepage, but there is a way to actually look at all of the games that will be available on launch day for the Switch 2, or at least most of them. So at the time of recording yesterday, you couldn't do this, but right now, if you really want to look at some Switch 2 store pages on your Switch 1 eShop, if you just go to the search tab, put a space, and then search just blank, search everything on the store, hit the little tab that says include Nintendo Switch 2 software, and then filter by newest to oldest, and eventually you will start seeing some Switch 2 software popping up, and then if you scroll down far enough, you'll see June 5th with all of the launch games. And even as I record this seems to be updated almost daily, because yesterday when I checked it, Civilization 7's upgrade pack wasn't there. I think that's actually new information. So if you're planning on checking out Civilization 7 on Nintendo Switch 2 with the mouse controls, there is a $10 upgrade pack from the Switch 1 version, which I haven't seen anybody report on. That's just on the eShop for you to view. So I might do a full video just looking at everything. There's some pre-order bonuses for Suikoden and like a early discount purchase thing there. Survival Kids from Konami has a price point now. So I think I'll do a separate video on that, but I wanted to include it because, I don't know, it's just kind of neat being able to look at the eShop and actually see, oh, Mario Kart World is on there. You can look at the Mario Kart World screenshots now on your Switch 1, which is just, I don't know, it's kind of fun. Gives you something to do to pass the time. It is May now, so we can officially say that next month, the Nintendo Switch 2 releases. Only what, 5 weeks away? Very, very exciting times. Okay, and then the final thing I wanted to talk about in today's video is not necessarily related to the Nintendo Switch 2. However, I think it is going to be a part of the greater conversation with Switch 2 when we talk about the console price, we talk about game pricing, and we talk about tariffs here in the US. This morning, Microsoft announced that pretty much across the board, all of their Xbox products are going up in price, and these are not small price increases either. I mean, we've seen Sony increase the price of the PS5 by like 30 pounds, 50 pounds, whatever the case is. There was a lot of fear that Nintendo would increase the price of the Switch 2 from $450 to $500 for the base units because of the tariffs. Well, this morning, Microsoft announced a huge change in their slates of prices. So the Xbox Series S, the 512 gig Xbox Series S, is going from $300 to $380. The 1 terabyte Series S is going from $350 to $430. The Xbox Series X, the one that has a disk drive, is going from $500 to $600, so a full $100 increase. And look at this one, the Xbox Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Special Edition. That's the 2 terabyte one. That's going from $600 to $730, more than the PS5 Pro here in America for a 2 terabyte Series X, as well as the controllers. They've also confirmed that select first-party Xbox games will be $80 moving forward, starting this holiday. You have to imagine Call of Duty will be the first of those, right? Call of Duty Black Ops 7 or whatever it is. This is very interesting, and I'm already seeing a lot of people blame Nintendo for this, saying, oh, Nintendo opened the floodgates for all these publishers to be even more greedy. Listen, I understand Nintendo bad guy. Nintendo will always be bad guy. I totally get it. They will forever be the company that set the precedence, I guess we'll say, of an $80 game. However, especially when we're talking about these console prices, there's someone you can point your finger at more than Nintendo when it comes to the console prices, and that is Donald Trump with the tariffs in America, which I think are going into effect here soon. So this is just the reality of the situation. It's not necessarily Nintendo's fault that, yeah, Microsoft has to raise the price of all of their consoles. It's just the economic reality of the situation we live in, at least here in America. Unfortunately, it seems like this might also apply to some European territories, which obviously isn't fair to people that live in Europe. I'm sorry that seems to be the case. I will say, you know, seeing these price increases for Xbox, Sony has not increased the price of the PS5 in America yet. A couple weeks ago, they changed it in like Australia and New Zealand, I believe, as well as some other European territories. They have not increased the price in America, though. I think that is definitely coming in the next couple of weeks even, but if not, then certainly by holiday. And I'm worried that the Switch 2, if these tariffs truly go into place, which it seems like they're going to, and they actually end up lasting and they don't get some sort of exemption like they did back in 2020 or 2019, I'm personally worried that when Nintendo runs out of their launch Switch 2 stock here in America, their whatever they have there on launch day for Switch 2, I'm worried that this holiday, we see Nintendo say, hey, the $450 price tag you saw on launch day for like the base unit, that was an introductory price point, and we're actually raising it to $500 or $530 for the base unit without Mario Kart. I don't think that's impossible. We already saw them increase the price of the accessories, and seemingly they're using the accessories and the amiibo and everything to help offset those losses from the console sales from the tariffs. But I don't know, man. It's just a bad situation. No one wants to pay more for their console, be it on Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation. But unfortunately, even if Nintendo wasn't the first one to go, then it would have been Xbox. It would have been PlayStation in a few weeks, like I said. Like, I don't think we should necessarily blame Nintendo here. They're not fully innocent in all this, obviously. But this is less about Nintendo and more about just the current market situation. And I mean, it sucks to see. I know growing up, it was always, okay, we get a new Nintendo console or a new PlayStation once it goes on discount. When I got my PS3 in 2009, it was because they had that PS3 Slim that was literally half the price of the launch model. We don't live in that world anymore where consoles get cheaper over the course of the generation and new models come out and they're cheaper. I hope we can one day return to that because I think it is very important for the longevity of a console, especially for a handheld like the Switch. I mean, these are usually consoles that people end up buying multiple of if they break, or multiple per household. Unlike an Xbox or a PlayStation where you buy one and you're done pretty much. These things don't really break as much. People are harder on a 3DS or a Switch, so replacements are a little bit more necessary. I wonder where a Switch 2 Lite ends up coming in. Probably like $400, to be honest. Like, I really think a Switch 2 Lite would be $350, $400 at this point in time. And that's just not good. You know, that's not a good thing. It hurts to say that because I remember growing up and seeing the Wii go down to like, you know, $150, $100. The GameCube at one point was like $50. Even the 2DS. Remember when the 2DS with Mario Kart was like $70? That was crazy. You know, we will never see that happen again. And it's just sad to see the price of every console just steadily go up and never get cheaper like we used to. I mean, we're 5 years in almost to the PS5 and Series X generation, And here we are. Yep, Series X launched at 500 back then. Now it's actually 600. So if you're holding out on buying a Switch 2 because of the price and you think, oh, I'll get a Switch 2 for a little bit cheaper a few years down the line, that might be possible if you buy a used one off of Craigslist or something or Facebook Marketplace. But if you want to buy a new Switch 2, I don't think it's unlikely that the cheapest you will ever be able to get a Switch 2 is on June 5th. Of course, that is my own speculation, but make of that what you will. Just based on what we're seeing with the other platform holders, and based on the Switch itself, I mean, the Switch really never went down in price. They did some bundles with games around the holidays, but I don't think we're going to be looking at a $400 Switch 2 anytime soon. I really don't think that's ever going to happen unless it is a Switch 2 Lite. So let me know your thoughts on all this Xbox pricing stuff in the comments down below. I will say, like, as someone who plays on every platform, Xbox, I think they're in like the least good position to have to increase their prices like this. Sony's going to be fine if they raise the price of the PS5 from 500 to 600, I think. Nintendo's going to be fine at 450 with the Switch 2. But a Series X at 600? I don't know about that, man. I mean, the Series consoles were already lagging really far behind in terms of sales with the Series S, which was retail $300. What happens now that it's $380? I don't know, man. I just feel like this is a bad situation all around. But let me know your thoughts on the pricing in the comments down below, as well as all of the other news stories that we discussed in today's video. I got a lot of feedback on my news roundup yesterday. People seem to like this style and this format. So as long as we keep getting a bunch of little news stories relating to Nintendo and Switch 2, I will definitely keep doing these roundups. Once again, thank you for helping the channel hit 30,000 subscribers. I really, truly do appreciate it. My goal before Switch 2 was 30K, and we're still a month away, and we already hit it. So I'm really grateful that you all helped the channel get to where it is. It would not have been possible without your support. Of course, you can subscribe here for more Nintendo news and my other channel at Amiibo for Nintendo collecting content. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames and check out one of these two videos here to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo stuff. Until next time, folks. Peace.